Should press the button.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Good afternoon. Welcome, Lara.
Thank you.
We were just commenting before we went live about your sparkly background.
I know that, and I think, oh my God, it's actually kept it up from last night. I think you've got to go back and take it back off again. And I tried to do that, but it's not playing. You'll probably have to take me off and then bring me back on again. But we're here. Everybody needs a bit of sparkle, Jonathan.
We do. I've got a very plain background in comparison now.
Mary Heaven's on. Hello, Mary. It's good to see you on here. So we have one viewer. I don't even know how many. Is there anybody watching? Hello. There we go. Mary Heaven. Beth Sibbering's on as well. Hello, Beth. I recognise these girls, so that's good.
Excellent. So we are going to talk today about the Supernatural magazine and talk about all the content that is on this website. There are hundreds, if not thousands of articles for you to have a look at, and it is completely free. So we are basically going to detail some of the content that is available, because we are going to be talking some of those subjects and encouraging you to engage with us and let us know your thoughts about things.
That's right. Lorna Jones has joined us as well. Hello, both. Good to see you on here, right? So we're asking you, like Lorna, hi both. She's saying hi to us both and also to Mary and Beth. Probably she'll recognise her names. So which is great to see you on here. So today's topic is about what, Jonathan?
Well, we're gonna talk about everything that's inside the magazine, but we are going to focus at some point on paranormal investigations and whether what you feel about mediums on paranormal investigations, whether they are assisting the investigation or actually hindering.
Well, that's right, because there's probably a good discussion about both, isn't there? The fact that, you know, mediums, in my view, are to assist, right? But like you're saying, sometimes they can get, or we can get a little bit carried away, right?
Yes. Sometimes they might not be getting as much as they'd like to get, and sometimes they might be, their personality might come across more than any kind of spirit. And sometimes I find investigators just hang off every word. And there is that risk of Emperor's New Clothes, where basically nobody wants to sort of look as if they didn't pick up what the medium was coming up with. And so they might superficially add information that was suggested by the medium rather than what they're getting themselves.
Well, that's right. Yeah. Like I said, medium, the word medium means communicator, doesn't it? Right. But you've got to kind of look at going on of what is the role of a medium. A medium is probably the translator, the interceptor, the communicator, the magnifier of information, right? That we're able to change and communicate vocally in some way. All right. So transform it and communicate it. So there's certain situations that maybe that it can be, like you're saying, a help, and it can also be a hindrance, because it kind of takes it away from perhaps the paranormal investigators, you know, that are there, that are trying to do their job and interpret the information from the apparatus that they've got. All right. So kind of it's all 50 shades of probably the same thing, but it's very easy to get caught up in, because it's the easier alternative to skip to what the medium's saying, right? Because it takes away that we've actually got to put the work in, guys. We've got to put the work in, let the paranormal investigators do their job, right? Let the apparatus, because it takes time with any apparatus to try and profile information, doesn't it, to get the result. And let's be honest, we're all great at causing problems, but we're not great at waiting for the solution to them, are we? Or an explanation for that matter.
So if you are a medium who have frequently gone on paranormal investigations, let us know your experiences. And also, if you are from a paranormal group and you've had experiences with mediums in the past, perhaps you'd like to let us know what you think as well. We would look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. Jenny Jury's on as well. Hi, Jenny. Girls, what's your input? Have you been on paranormal investigations before? Right. And if you have, give us your input. Right, Samantha is also on. We're not on to do readings today, unfortunately, Samantha. Right, you'll have to wait till later on, girl, okay? Over on my page or Claire's page. John Spratt's also on as well. John's another very well-known medium. So he's saying good afternoon. Lorna Jones, have you come across a spirit and know it was volatile? And yes, and yes, what have you done then? Jonathan, have you come across a spirit that's been volatile before in your investigations?
I suppose in terms of what I look for in terms of a paranormal investigation, I'm looking for physical evidence. And so therefore physical evidence is a bit cold in terms of whether you consider it volatile in terms of intent. But we have certainly encountered experiences where members of the public have felt threatened and uncomfortable, and a spirit has been forceful. We'll just say that. It's been a very forceful spirit, and we've had to shut things down quite quickly because we are a little bit worried about what may happen. And, in the end of the day, when we are running these things, we have a duty of care. We've got to make sure that the customers are safe and feel safe. And if they are feeling endangered, whether physically and emotionally or psychically from the spirit, or even like if they panicked and then try to run out of that space, there is a risk. So we have to shut things down and move them to a safer area where we can feel that we've got a better sense of control.
It's like a health and safety, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like a health. Oh, we've got a ghost in the
ghost behind you.
I hate to tell you, Lara, but there's a ghost. We've all actually had some activity here today, Jonathan. Let me tell you.
Did you?
What happened? Opening and closing. Now you've got to understand that the doors are on a mechanical mechanism thing, aren't they? Because they're fire doors and stuff. So it's not that easy to open the goddamn doors and shut them, let me tell you.
Don't forget the piano playing last night.
We had the piano playing last night. I came up the stairs, right, convinced Ben was in the sitting room because there was somebody playing notes on the piano, right? So I started talking, didn't I, saying, "Is that you in the piano?" Right? Of course, nobody answered me back, or not that I could hear, because I was coming up for a different, I wasn't tuned in, and that's another thing as a medium, we don't walk around tuned in all the time. So I'm thinking that it's him playing the piano. And of course, he arrives from behind me at that point from the kitchen. So I'm like, "It's not you playing the piano." "Oh, right. Okay, then here we go." So there we go. So not got volatile yet, Lorna, can I say that?
Have you ever set up any cameras on the piano to capture it playing itself?
We haven't, but interestingly enough, Ben did say that last night, and I think that might be a smart move forward. All right, it could be. We have a ring monitor, the ring, the video thing at the front door, right? It's got a night vision thing on it as well, so we thought we'd use that. What do you recommend, Jonathan?
Yes, well, you can get some really good body cameras, but also the ones you could set up for wildlife. They are very effective as well, because you can obviously set them out in the garden as well, but you can bring them internally, and if anything moves, if it detects any movement or sound, it will start videoing.
Yeah.
They're usually about £80 for the outside ones and more like £100 for the body cameras.
Yes. Yeah,
you can set up a whole CCTV, but it's quite
That'd be
involved.
Brilliant, yeah, because Ben, he's really into the stuff like that. I've got to say, me, I'm the medium, if you know what I mean. It doesn't cross my mind to do stuff like that. I was more like, wow, like I heard that as clear as day. Coming up the stairs, it wasn't even dark in the night time or anything, and it felt like it was the whole part of, everybody all living together. It's a very old building here, Jonathan. It's 11th century, you see. So there's a lot of memory and a lot of, the house has absorbed a lot of energy, let's just say.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Christy, saying hello to us.
Good afternoon. Somebody said good evening. Who was that?
And then Dominique corrected herself to good afternoon for us.
Beth says she's never been in an investigation, but I've watched plenty. I definitely love to hear mediums' inputs. Yeah. Then that's just it, Beth. It's good to have the input, but it's just one dimension of it, isn't it? It's really just one aspect of it. There's actually so many other different aspects.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you very quickly the website, because I have the technology in my grasp to do this. So I'm going to show you, for example, there are various sections within the website. And I can control it this way. You see, there's a section called Haunting, and underneath that is anything to do with any of the aspects of what we would consider investigations into the paranormal, in terms of perhaps ghosts is a better expression. So from apparitions to the science of EVP, electronic voice phenomena, anything on ghost hunting, it's a very broad subject. Investigations in terms of research techniques. And then we go into that lovely subject of the poltergeist. You talk about sort of more volatile spirits. Well, poltergeists by their very definition are the more volatile. And also roads, because there's a lot of anecdotal evidence about ghosts that appear on roads. But we will in the future be talking about haunted woods and outdoor locations, because there's lots of rumours and speculations about various places. So we will be doing an investigation looking at those and encouraging some people to come on and talk to us about that subject matter. But within any of these subjects, there are hundreds of articles involving these subject matters, these topics, and also some from paranormal investigation groups who might have been to, for example, the ancient Ram Inn. And we're very keen on paranormal groups, if they want to send us a report of somewhere they have investigated, an investigation of note, for example, do send us in your evidence and your report, because we would love to feature some of these amazing locations around the world that have basically got these legendary hauntings, so that we can share them online and really sort of discuss them further.
That's fabulous. Love the website. Looks great.
So, Laura, do you want to talk about any of the other sections?
The other sections of
The website.
On the website, well, I was actually looking at that. I mean, there's so many gorgeous properties around the country, right, that have a lot of activity in them. I've got to admit, I'm not the type of medium that likes to sit in paranormal investigations and stuff. I get a bit impatient, I've got to say, right, at times. Right? And also, I'm scared of the dark, Jonathan. What can I say?
You're not. Are you?
I still sleep with the whole light on, honestly. I mean, I know it's in the dark, right? I can see better in the dark than I can, like, in the daylight. It's kind of like my brain works the other way around. But I would love to hear if anybody's been to any particularly haunted locations. That would be incredible. I once went to visit Chingle Hall. Have you been to Chingle Hall?
No, where's that?
In Lancashire. Right.
Oh, right.
An old monk's place, because you can tell because the doorways are like tiny. They've got little monk's holes and, you know, stuff in there. And that was very haunted. There was a very weird feeling on the stairs, only to realise that the stairs had actually burned down and they rebuilt the stairs just further along. It felt like they were in the wrong place. And there's a moat round about it as well. There's a moat. And I always felt that if you've got running water, that's great. But when you've got like dead water like that, like a moat that's stagnant, that kind of magnifies activity in a place as well. I don't know if you've ever felt that too. If the property's been near water, the activity kind of tends to be a bit greater.
Yes, I've heard this spoken about many times, either moated properties or properties that have got lakes around them or near them. And one person told me that one of the reasons they thought that Portsmouth was so incredibly haunted was effectively it's an island city. It is surrounded on all sides by water. So I don't know whether whether moated fresh still water is different to a river, is different to seawater, whether there's any difference in activity in terms of those types of waters.
That's right. And then let's not forget the geophysics side of things, Nori was here with our guys not so long ago that had the apparatus that can scan right below ground and stuff, and also scan into places to actually technically take an x-ray to see what's going on as well, can't it? To see what's happening below the surface, which was absolutely fascinating. And I've got to say that when she came here, the ley lines started playing up, right? It was, I think, round about a full moon, and they spent all night and most of the day charging their apparatus, and then we were outside and it just killed the battery right within 10 minutes.
Is that evidence of ley lines? Is the fact that the end battery operated machinery will start failing?
Yes, this property is built on two very big ley lines at a crossover point. I mean, who thought about that, for goodness sake? They obviously didn't put thought into it. And if you follow the history of the property, it's had a very checkered past. It's had a couple of fires. It's had a couple of murders as well. William Wallace battles were fought not far away from here. We've had Knights Templar stuff here. Mary Queen of Scots. It's Robert Burns, right? Saturated in history, right? And Jonathan's like going really because it's like that's a lot, isn't it? I mean, it's 11th century. It's going to have a
lot of history. A
lot of history, but the annoying thing is when you've got such a big property and the ley lines start to act up, right? It doesn't half cause a problem with the property. And even if I didn't believe in that before, I did start to think about that further along, because it's like there has to be another explanation for this. It can't just keep happening. And there was a regularity coinciding with a full moon. And we're near the sea. We're literally only a 5-minute walk from the sea.
So you've got a perfect storm then.
We've got the recipe for a storm, I think is what I'm saying, Jonathan.
Pat has suggested it now, excuse my pronunciation, but Phoebe Castle in Aberdeenshire.
Where's that? Oh, fact, I've not been near Aberdeenshire. Pat lives in Aberdeen. That's where she does. Is that really particularly haunted, Pat? Dominique said Bradgate Park. Where's Bradgate Park?
Yes, Dominic, where is Bradgate Park? And perhaps you could tell us something about it.
So, Jonathan, what's the most haunted place that you've been? That you would...
I've been to a lot of locations, hundreds of locations. The interesting thing is that locations change. So sometime it could be immensely active, wherever you go, every section, every investigation, every vigil. And then other times you can go back and nothing. You get absolutely nothing. And there's been, I remember one time I went to a location, it's an old Napoleonic fort built in Portsdown Hill called Fort Widley. And it's usually a place where you always get something, always, no matter what kind of weather, what kind of time of year, you get something. This one time, categorically, 3 groups got absolutely nothing. Not even possibly a tap, possibly a shadow, possibly a footstep, absolutely nothing. And so, yeah, it can happen that sometimes you just can find out all sorts of things. Oh, Pat is saying, yes, it's very haunted indeed. And Dominique has said that Bradgate Park is in Leicestershire.
Right, Lady...
Oh, Lady Jane Grey, yes. Check it.
So there's a possibility for one there, Jonathan, for an investigation up in Aberdeenshire, Fife Castle.
Yes. Yeah. I think I've heard of that, actually. Yes. Once you put a Scottish accent on it, I suddenly realised, I recognise the name.
There you go. But perhaps there could be something in the ley line thing triggering activity, right? So that could be an explanation. I'm not saying it definitely is, but it could be,
ley lines is something I've never really understood. Yeah. Isn't it a little bit arbitrary about how they are laid out and mapped?
And yet the history books will tell us that, well, history is manipulated, as you know, but Merlin, right, had a cave in Moffat, right, not far away, and he was seen to be levitating, right, because he knew where the ley lines were. Okay. All right. Now it could be myth. All right, Jonathan, give me that smile like, here we go. reverse, not like. And so ley lines, right, it kind of did intrigue probably my interest, from something like that. But having lived in this place, right, is there any other explanation as to why it happens, at certain times and it doesn't? And then batteries go, the electrics go. We once had guests in here, Jonathan, and for no apparent reason, and they were elderly guests as well. It was like somebody having a big laugh at their expense.
So I think we need to do an episode on ley lines. So Dominique was asking, could we explain it further? So maybe we need to do some research. And Lynn's asking, how do you find if ley lines are around you? So we need to maybe do some research and see if we can find some experts who can come and talk about ley lines.
So there we go, when we were looking at topics and things. But I suppose getting back to the whole medium's role in the supernatural, right, and the paranormal, right, side of things, and their ability, I find it quite difficult that mediums can, for any length of time, can I just say, Jonathan, sort of kind of be in the paranormal. I find the energy quite dense, in there. It's like got a low vibe feeling as opposed to a high vibe feeling, in my solar plexus. So if a medium's able to operate in that paranormal area, for a long period of time, I start to kind of look at it. Do I really want negative entities, or not nice energies, coming into my vicinity, right? That always goes to my mind. I know it might not be a consideration perhaps for a paranormal investigator, but it is about protecting the energy. However, what I do think a medium is very good for is protecting the people there. And this is why it's important not to go off track, not to go off into the imagination side, or, say what you see, right? A bit like the medium is the messenger, deliver the message. That's what you're there for. Not to carry on with that and go off into a story or, try and get, because you're really manipulating the audience there, and that's not what that is about, right? It's not, right? You're there to see whether there is any evidence of ghosts, right, or paranormal activity there, and you don't see that stuff whilst your imagination is running off in a different tangent, right, or you're on a different vibe. Does that make sense? So I have a very black and white view of that, Probably why I kind of bailed out and that sort of thing a long time ago. I felt like some of it was just filled with a pile of shit, to be honest with you. Sorry about that. Next.
Well, let's, while we wait for some people to pop in and have a chat with us, let's have a look at what's on the website in terms of spiritualism. There's a whole section on spiritual aspects of the supernatural, whether it be demonology, magic, mediumship, psychic art, the occult, possession, prediction, divination, reincarnation, religion. As you see, a lot of subjects. It was very difficult actually to try and categorize these down into smaller sections, but we have done our best to try and cover most subjects. So if you've got an interest in anything spiritual, whether you're trying to develop your psychic medium abilities or divination, or even you just want to know more about religions from around the world, then there's certainly some aspects on the website that might be of interest to you. Have a go on, have a read, and we'd love to know what you would like us to investigate and talk about next.
There's some fascinating topics in there, isn't there? There's some fascinating topics. I love that the average medium doesn't have an average day out.
Yes. Many mediums have said that sometimes Tesco can be the most haunted place they've ever been to.
Yeah, don't even talk the supermarket. That's a challenge. That is a challenge indeed. But there's some the demonology, that's that looks like a fascinating subject as well, right? Because
a lot of articles about demonology. Amy wants to do some research into that.
Yes, it is. I mean, Dominique says she loves to know more about astral travel.
There is definitely a section on astral travel within the website, actually.
There we go. And we've got Lynn Johnson. Another thought is that maybe these, I was reading it down there, but you put it on the screen, thank you. Lines invite spirit in a sort of a vortex. So it kind of opens up maybe a pocket of energy, you're saying, Lynn, in order for the activity to happen. There's an interesting concept. I don't know how we go about proving that, though, Jonathan, do you?
No, almost impossible to prove. This is the problem with science. I mean, my approach is trying to find anything that's a physical dimension in terms of what we can try and find, so that there is some kind of repeatability and recordability. We need to be able to document what happens and then get it to repeat. And a lot of this, when it comes to more spiritual aspects, are unrepeatable, and that is the big issue. So yeah. Dominique has written something quite interesting in terms of something they've witnessed. Oh, that's quite involved.
That's awful. Whoa, when was that, Dominique? Was it a while ago or was it fairly recently? That's actually quite, that takes it on to a different area. Dominique, do you see spirit anyway? Or, and do you see after that event, or did, beforehand, you carry on in your life and then that happened and then you start to take notice more of stuff going on round about you? Because that's another topic, isn't it? It comes along the banner of you don't necessarily get involved in stuff until you have an experience in it. And then you start to, he was in, say, my family, so he was in your family home, right? Okay. So this lad, right, she must have seen in the family home.
Dominic just said it was years ago.
Years ago, right, okay, then. So that would have shaken you up quite a bit, Dominique, I should imagine. Yeah. Did you know about the history there first, or did you have to look into the history after you witnessed this lad? That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Dominique, if you want to come on and have a chat with us, do. We can add you to the conversation.
That's right, Dominic. If you want to come at years ago, so I'm thinking you probably need to send the link, wouldn't you, into the comment section, perhaps?
So if she wants to message us on the Supernatural Magazine Facebook page, send us a direct message, and then we can send you a link and we can get you coming on live and talking to us about your experiences.
Now, they reckon that, Lynn, that you find ley lines by using dowsing rods, right, which are tools to help find energetic. Did not know the history. That
makes sense. She didn't know the history.
Yeah. Tools that help you find differences in energetic pockets, I would say. What's his name? Made a fortune, didn't he? Dowsing for oil. Uri Geller, that was it. That was where he originally made his money and his name from before he actually became big on TV and stuff. He dowsed for oil, right, over for the Arabs. All right. And so if you can douse for oil, you can douse for ley lines, surely.
Well, why not? Have you ever tried dowsing?
I have. You can actually make a couple of dowsing rods by coat hangers, the metal coat hangers. Right. So it must be to do with, because they're metal, aren't they? It's which is reactive to the magnetic force field, perhaps, from the Earth.
Mm.
You're a physicist, Jonathan. You'd be able to explain that a little bit better than myself.
Well, yes. So the evidence is a bit patchy in terms of dowsing. So whether you use a piece of wood or metal, obviously metal will respond to any of the electromagnetics and even dielectrics of the materials around it, whereas the wood won't. So there is no reason, there's no force strong enough to act on the wood that's going to overcome any kind of gravitational force. But there is a force, magnetic force, which is going to be strong enough to allow something to sway from side to side, fluctuating magnetic force. It's about the only thing that's going to be strong enough to overcome gravity. Whereas in wood, there is nothing, it's not affected by a magnetic or dielectric field. So unless it's a massive field, it won't. So really, metal I can understand, wood makes no logical sense.
Oh, okay then.
There we go.
How it works.
So who was asking about astral projection?
I think that was it.
If you go to the Supernatural Magazine website and go onto the section of mind, there is a whole area about research into the mind, but that's where we sort of cover astral projection and outer body experiences and near-death experiences. There's a whole different section in there. We cover anything from consciousness, dreams, NDE, near-death experiences, meditation, outer body, PK, psychokinetic activity, and also we cover superstitions because we put them into the sociology and psychology aspect of things at that point. Let's get
there's a category for everybody on the Supernatural Magazine page, because it's like trying to buy a size 10 dress and expecting everybody to wear it, right?
Yes.
We don't all have the same interests in everything. We don't all believe in everything, right? And belief it's to do with the individual, isn't it? About our beliefs and belief and how it's shaped, our genetic history, that sort of thing. So go and have a look on the Supernatural Magazine website. Have a look to see the topics there, right? And please message us in the chat column with what your particular area of interest is, because we're going to be doing this every week, aren't we, Jonathan?
We are. So we are going to start doing this every week, hopefully this time, Wednesdays at midday. And we're going to pick a different subject to talk about and get different people on and show you where we've got articles about this, potential videos, investigations, and we'll hopefully get some interesting guests on who can come and talk about these subject matters.
Well, there's a really, exactly. So we've got lots of fascinating content, lots of fascinating professionals, experts in areas, and we also want to hear your thoughts as well. This is not just about the professionals. It's a learning journey, isn't it? We're all on a journey, and it's not about explanation. It's not about what the result. It's really about the explanation as we're going along in that journey, right? All the different facets of it. Because Lynn's got a really good tried rods and actually asked a question in my head to point to the road in the sitting room at the time, and they swung over to both point towards the road direction. So you see, there is probably another theory there of intuition, right? Because I'm a card reader, right? So I'm always asking myself, am I picking up on that person, or is my because we've got parts of our brain that haven't really been totally explored and we're probably not even going to know about in this lifetime. But is there a part in there that already knows what's going to happen, that's actually already sending that information out? The dowsing rods are perhaps picking up on what your intuition's getting, rather than actually the information is external. It's about the information is internal, and you're having to get it out and read it in some particular way. And cards can do that as well. I often say to people, cards are great, not just a tool to learn about reading for other people, but actually a tool to learn about all the different facets of yourself. Right.
So Lorna was asking about reincarnation. She apparently had a chat with you. And there is a section on reincarnation, just waiting for the main picture, about past life regression, life or death, experiments, reincarnation. So there's lots of articles about reincarnation and past life if you want to go on and have a look on the magazine.
Yes, reincarnation is a fascinating subject because it even goes into some faiths as well, doesn't it, Jonathan? Some faiths believe in reincarnation, and it's quite a solid presence in there too. So we would love to know your thoughts on that. So reincarnation seems to be quite strong in here as well, I've got to say. And also the fascinating, people, I think, like to discover more about what they don't necessarily see in life and would love to know that it exists, right? And believe it or not, that's what paranormal investigation is about, isn't it?
Yes, all about the investigation, the journey, that lovely expression they use on X Factor. It is about the journey. And it's about trying to add tiny little nuggets of knowledge to build on that knowledge base that we've got to try and explain things as we go along.
Yeah, which is fascinating. Jonathan, come on, tell us. We're all dying to know. Have you ever tried to read cards yourself?
Have I tried to read cards?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's one of those things. It's there's probably two things that people do as teenagers as they go into that late teenager part of their life, when you go that exploration of trying to understand yourself and your future, and what they probably either play with a Ouija board or you get tarot cards and you try and read them yourself. So I did buy a set of tarot cards, and I bought the set that was basically that we used in Live and Let Die because I thought the design was quite nice. And so I did play with them for a while. I did sort of try and read them. I could read out the major set of the 12, definitely the 12 majors I could read. But yeah,
there's a lot of kerfuffling in there.
I think the trouble with reading your own cards is very much like doing your own dowsing in terms of you're asking questions. You're basically creating your own fantasy. You're creating a fiction. You're asking your own and answering your own questions. It's like that game when you want to write a story and you write, you're supposed to pass it on to the next person for them to have their input into it. But if you did the whole thing yourself, well, you've just written your own story. So I'm always dubious about interpreting yourself and not getting somebody else's opinion in that's going to be a little bit colder in terms of its analysis.
Yeah. You haven't really said anything about how your view is on mediums being in the paranormal situation as well when you're doing,
Well, that's Lynn has just said that very thing. How did you both begin your journeys? Mine's a very complicated story. How's yours?
God. When I actually I fell down the stairs when I was about 4, right? Because it was pitch black, hence why I have the hall light on. And I was only a little girl. I was going to the bathroom at night time, and I must have kind of been, a bit still half asleep. Fell down the stairs, looked up, and somebody looked at me through the letterbox with yellow eyes, right? I screamed, and my dad came running through, and he opened the door. Yeah, yellow eyes. I still remember them even now. It was probably because it was unexpected, right? And they were huge eyes as well. Now, I get that. I was terrified. I probably got a shock falling down the stairs, right? But it's something that stayed with me because my mum said it was even before then. She, as you learn to communicate as a child, I would know who was on the phone before she picked it up. She could tell by the way I behaved to do with who was on the phone. Like if we were driving away and we left somebody in the car, right? And I was only little, I'd start crying and my mum would say, "What's wrong?" And I'd say, "We were not going to see them again." As in, we're not going to see them again, and they would die not long after, right? And then it's developed more and more until eventually I got into, quite randomly, a seance in my teens. So when other people were had pop stars on the wall and stuff, I was actually in crypts, going through cemeteries, having seances and stuff with some fascinating things happen there. So I kind of was always wired to doing that. What about you?
Oh, right. Very long story. So my background is actually science. I was studying physics, so I've got a degree in physics, and I went on to a master's degree in studying physics. And it was at that point I bumped into someone who was doing some filming for a TV production company that was filming something about ghosts. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. And then in the process of that, they started making all these claims about table tipping and levitation and all sorts of things. So I got very excited because they were claiming that there was going to be physical violations of the laws of physics. Now that, as a physicist, is going to get me very excited if that's actually going to happen. Yeah. So I got involved in this expecting that, and then found that there were no physical violations of the laws of physics. Surprise, surprise. So just some very suggestible people. But then the whole subject matter became fascinating, and I've now conducted something like 700 paranormal investigations in hundreds of locations, and it's really fascinating in terms of looking at watching the people and trying to understand their thought processes. And I've seen some very strange physical phenomena, but mainly it's in terms of how people have interpreted this that have then allowed me to carry this journey on and study it for such a long time.
Because I think with both of us, we have this natural interest, and I have a natural interest certainly in spiritual and science, right? And the point at which they meet. I just love looking into that, right? And probably you come from the other way, from the science background, don't you? Into the well, maybe spirit does exist in that. So I think this is probably where we're both connected.
I think at the end of a journey, in event of investigation, if you on the very big subjects about the meaning of life kind of stuff, then you have to have some endpoints where you have to try and think of the possibilities of some kind of divine creator. And one of my specialities is what's called cosmogenesis, about how the universe was created. And again, without a creator is a difficult concept at some point. No definition of what that creator is or the higher purpose, but if you think that there's something there, it helps, as opposed to completely randomness is a bit of a struggle. I noticed that Ruth was asking, can you buy your own tarot cards, or is it bad luck?
It's better if you're giving them as a gift, really, to be honest with you, because if you have the intention of reading cards, right, you're reading them with your logical mind as opposed to your intuitive mind, and there is a difference, right? So it's better if you get given them as a gift, or have a look and see which ones you vibe towards. There's the black and the white, like in terms of the way that we think, and then there's 50 shades of grey in between, and we cards from the 50 shades of grey part in between, right? So even if nobody's prepared to gift you them, give the money to somebody else, send it to them, tell them which ones you want, and get them to buy it for you, right? I think it's all about the energy that you read them in that's important. But I would recommend to throw the book away. I've never read a book with cards to this day, because they're just somebody else's interpretation of them.
A bit like dream dictionaries.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you see how it is to interpret dreams, right? If you have a dream and you ask like 10 different people, you'll get 10 different interpretations of that dream. Okay.
So in fact, Ruth, if you go to the website, there is an entire section about the history of tarot cards. So visit supernaturalmagazine.com and you can read about how tarot cards came about.
There we go. Yes, and there's thousands of different cards out there, tarot cards, right? That's an interesting job. We could maybe do a session on how the cards came about originally, when they were designed, where they were designed, who designed them, and for what purpose, and why they are the way they are in so many. Cause there is a lot, like you're saying, you learn to read the major arcana, but the minor ones are like just it's like a lot of fillers, isn't it? Where they're unnecessary at times, but I'm sure they're all there for a reason.
I'm sure that the serious tarot readers would argue it was in the same way as astrologers would then say you need your rising houses in terms of if you're ever going to read someone's astrological fortune or prediction.
Yes, exactly. But do we get anywhere by focusing on all the shit? We don't, do we? We don't get there by focusing on all the little bits. We get there, if you think about aiming for something, right? You don't aim for all the bits in between. You aim for your dream the other side of it, or you aim for your objective the other side of it, right? The rest of the stuff is the journey.
Dominique raises an interesting point. She says that her communication with animals has showed us so much. So has anybody else ever communicated with animals? Now, is she talking about live animals or dead animals in this instance?
I think it'll be live animals, but we could be wrong, right?
Well,
so
I know loads of cases of ghost dogs that have occurred in the middle of a ghost hunt when we've been in a haunted building, and suddenly people have thought there was been something around their legs brushing up against them, and then other people saying, "Did you see that dog? Was that dog actually in the building?" Dominic said yes, but I didn't know if that was yes to live or dead.
Live.
Live. Okay.
Said it's live one, didn't it? Yeah, live. Well, there you go.
We have had lots of, and there was one paranormal investigation where we made contact with a horse, and 3 independent groups all made contact with a horse and actually got a relatively sane conversation going, which was interesting to say the least. So what kind of communication would you have with a live? Oh, there you go. Ruth has said she's very good with live animals. So what do you communicate? I mean, I'm sure everyone with pets would say that they can communicate with their own pets and they know the looks of their pets.
That's right. I tell you, my first job when I left school was riding race horses, right? And, you know, with race, because they're very fast, very, you know, they're thoroughbreds, for goodness sakes. It's class. You know, you're on this, it's like a smooth engine. It's like being in a sports car, can I tell you that, right? Very smooth, right? And at high speed, I seem to be able to see more and feel more. Can I just say that? You know, everything slows down. There's a type of condition that is, but we can talk about that. Is it synthesia? I don't know if you've heard of that, where you're gather information and you know, to a meeting point in a certain place, and then you see information in a certain way. All right. And highly sensitive people can be very much like that. But let me tell you that I was great at, you know, you can feel their personalities. You can feel their thoughts when you're really tuned into the horse, right? And tuned into animals. My mum's a dog person, so she's very much like that with her dogs. What about you, Jonathan? You've got animals and pets. And
No.
Don't be ridiculous. There'll be hairs everywhere. I know.
Yes, basically, no. Do you have a goldfish? And I know when he's in a bad mood.
Exactly. I used to have a goldfish called George, and he would knock in the bowl and knock at me, right, to tell me he was hungry. It was feed time. Now, there goes the myth of goldfish have 3-second memories. Can I say that? Because he remembered when it was feed time.
My goldfish can recognize the container, so I can stand there, and his reaction to me being there and the reaction to the blue container coming out is completely different. So he's got color sensitivity in terms of his eyes, but I still say that's just a sociological response. It's a learned behavior. I wouldn't say there's any kind of empathic or telepathic ability that just that's. I don't think there's anything supernatural in that at all.
Well,
I'm just crediting more intelligence to my goldfish than most people would think.
Well, I think as human beings, we're wired to communicate, aren't we? And the communication happens internally as it does externally. So even perhaps when we're in silence, you know, look at meditation, right? We could also talk about that perhaps some, you know, in an episode, because again, it's very prevalent through face, but communicating with yourself, connecting with higher source, with cosmic energy, however it's dressed up. So really, if you're on the back of a horse, right, and you go quiet, you're connecting to that animal's energy, right? So the theory of being able to read that energy, right, is also probably the same as being a medium, right? I believe we're all mediums, we're all interpreters of information. It's just more, I suppose, prevalent or expanded in some people and others. Why? Because they've maybe got a stronger intuitive muscle. It's maybe the way they're born, or they've actually been developing it over time. Autism, right? Children that are autistic, right, that maybe don't communicate vocally. Some don't ever, and you get some like my son. He couldn't talk until the age of 6. So they interpret information in their silence, don't they? They're still interpreting and communicating in a different way. So when you look at that relationship there, you start to understand about how you can communicate with animals as well. But as you say, some of it is behavior, isn't it? And learned behavior.
Well, in fact, there's an article on the website about animals. Are they psychic or is it just instinct? So you can go and read that and make up your own mind.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've loved it. Have you?
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So we would like to know what you would like us to talk about, what you would like to investigate. And if you want to come on and join us live, be a third person in the middle of us, trying to work out which direction in between here.
That way, I know.
Yes, very complicated, trying to point. Fingers.
I could pass it.
Right, let's try that again. Right, there you go. Go for it.
All right, hang on.
Figure out. That was a bit of an ET moment. So do let us know through the Facebook page, the Supernatural Magazine Facebook. Let us know what you want to talk about and whether you want to come and join us, or is any subject matters that we need to investigate. Let us know, because we are here to investigate for you.
Yeah. Until next week. Bye-bye for now, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
You too.